Hey guys, Jay here. This is smarthelping.com. We've got a new financial model template. This is annual churn calculator for SaaS and recurring revenue businesses. We've got three methodologies we'll go into. We also have a model as well, like a model based on assumptions and a historical calculator that allows you to put in your SaaS customer data and calculate the annual churn rate. So the big thing here, all we're talking about is annual churn. This is up there with, as far as complexity to build this, it's up there with the joint venture models I've done with like internal rate of return hurdles and preferred returns, which again, both of these things you don't think are that complicated until you dive into the numbers, and it is not easy. This is not easy. I spent quite a bit of time making sure this is accurate and works right. So we'll go through the assumptions tab first, which is if you were going to create a financial forecast of potential numbers. This allows you to do that and see what the annual churn rate is based on that. And it uses two methodologies. And then we have the other tab, historical data, where you can put in actual historical customers, their start and end date, and that's all you need, these three, and then everything else automates. I did up to 5,000 rows. You can drag these rows down as far as you want, 10,000, 30,000, and the data will update. And then that uses the same framework as our assumptions model, but it's based on actuals. And this has a third annual churn rate calculation that wasn't really. It basically, it's the same as method two, because we're defining a retention here that every customer follows. But for the actual data, every customer could have a different length of time they're a customer, and so you get a different number using total customer months, which is a little bit more accurate. Um, so we'll go through all this. We'll start with the assumptions tab. So I have the monthly model here, which is just showing starting customer count, added lost, ending count, and we can see a monthly churn rate. So the question is, well, what if I want to know the annual churn rate? Do I just add up the monthly? Does that make sense? Um, how do I calculate? Do I just take the beginning users against the users lost in the year and do that? Does that make sense? Well, not really, because you have users that joined and left potentially within the same year. So technically, if you just did the beginning user count, you wouldn't know how many customers joined in that year. That should also be counted as a basis for churn. So churn is just your annual percentage of customers lost of what? And the of what is the hard part to understand. And that's where all the methodologies change. Now and that would be the denominator in this calculation, which is what you're dividing into. So the numerator will change, or sorry, the numerator will never change. That's just going to be the total customers lost in the year. So let's say you lost 10 customers out of whatever, and again, that's what we're going to talk about. The denominator, that's your churn rate. So the denominator is what we're going to dive into. Now here I've just done a simple model. You can put how many customers join each month, what the retention pattern is, what the contract length is, and this is the retention pattern at contract renewal. So these could be 1 month contracts, they could be 12-month contracts, 3-month, whatever. You put in the retention, and then based on that, you can see what the annual churn rate is for three different methods. Well, sorry, for two different methods for the model version. Why this is important is because you might have an industry benchmark annual churn rate that you're trying to get to in your model, and you don't know how to back into that with monthly data. This does that. So you can put in different retention rates, and obviously you can have different retention rates and still get to the same annual churn rate. There's essentially an infinite number of solutions, but you're going to try to put a retention rate that you think matches best what essentially the stickiness of your customer is. And this is just the probability that a customer stays a customer at each renewal period, whatever that might be. It might be 1 month or every 12 months or what have you. That will then drive a resulting annual churn rate. Now, let's talk about the first method. There's two methods we're going to show here. There's three methods we're going to do on the historicals. So, annual model, we have added lost per year. So again, this will be our numerator in each calculation, the amount churned in the year. And then here's the ending count. So we want to know, well, what's our churn rate? Well, you can't just divide the lost amount by the beginning balance. That doesn't make any sense because you potentially could have people added in the year that also left. So you can't just, let's say your beginning balance was 23, you had 10,000 customers join in year 3 because you had a whole bunch of marketing and things, and maybe half of those left. Well, then you're going to have a churn rate for year 3 that's astronomical and not actually that telling as far as the whole data set goes. So we can't just do that. That would be the simplest way. The next best thing we can do is take an average. And so we've got a couple averages going on here. And so method one, we want to know what's the average customer count over the entire 12-month period of each year. And to do that, we actually take the average of the starting and ending balance within each month, which is this row here. And then once we have that average, we can average that to say, okay, on average, the amount of customers that existed during the year was, in this case, well, it's about 5.9 for year 1. And then we can say how many customers were churned. And it's quite a small amount based on this retention schedule, only 5.6%. And so we're dividing the total churn by that essentially average of an average, which gets us, it says on average your balance of users was 6, even though at some points it was 2, at some points it was 11. So to know your annual churn rate in this method, you're trying to figure out on average, well, I had 6 customers and I lost, in this case, if we pull it, decimal was 0.33. And so that's 5.6% annual churn rate. The next methodology is a little bit more complex and a little bit more difficult. You have to have matrix style data to do this one, which you'll see here. And this is how I'm going to figure out the math on it. And so what I have to do is separate two cohorts. I have the starting new user, the existing customers in each year. And obviously year 1 there was 0, so 0. Year 2 we had 12 beginning customers. And the first part I want to know is how many customers left of that starting count. And that's my first churn rate. So I could say, okay, at the beginning of year 2 I had 12 customers. Of those 12, how many left? 1, that's 6%. That's my first weighted average for the annual churn rate. Then I had 12 customers, and let's just make these, let's put 100 here so we don't have the decimals. It's easier to explain this. Okay, there we go. So, here now I had 1,167 customers at the beginning of year 2. I lost 72, that's 6.2%. I had 1,200 new customers join in the year that also left in that same year. So that's a 2% rate. And now all I'm doing is taking the weighted average of those two annual churn rates to get my actual weighted average churn rate for the year. And this is method 2. And I'm weighting it based on new customers and essentially the customer bases for each of these against the churn rate. So here, this will never be over 100% because you can't lose more than what your starting count was or what new customers added. Now, with businesses that have high churn within the same year, it depends on your customer counts and retention, but you could have an annual churn rate that's over 100% for method 1, but not for method 2, because it's always going to say how many did you lose of existing, how many did you lose of those that joined, and then that's going to define your annual churn rate for this case in the chart here, and then we have monthly churn rate. So these two methods are both acceptable. Depends. I would say this is less accurate, this is more accurate, but it really depends. I'm actually going to remove these. It depends on your data. Both are completely justifiable. You can explain to VC both of these methods. This method 1 is a bit simpler, but usually it'll be higher. This is more complex and usually it'll be lower. Okay, So that's the model version. Now I built a second set of models here that uses the same framework, but you can now enter your actual historical data, customer ID. Really all you need is column B and C, start and end date of each customer. And then we can look here and see, enter your start month here and it'll go for 10 years and it'll show you based on this data, start and end date, it'll show you how many customers joined, left, and your balance over time. And again, I did 10 years just to make it as robust as possible. And so based on that, we can do method one, which is just, remember your average count. So average of the starting month customers, any month customers for each month of the year, then the average of that, and then your churn rate. Okay, no problem, makes sense. Method two, again, your churn rate of existing customers, churn rate of new customers that joined in the same year, and our weighted average. So fine, makes sense. And now method three. Now method three is new. So let me explain that. Let me get a drink of water really quick. Okay, so method three, you can only do it within a year. You can select any year like 2023 or 2024, 2025, 2026. So you can only select one year. And then the way it works is based on these start and end dates and the dates here of the year you're trying to do this analysis on, you can actually get the number of customer months, and that is going to be your denominator in this case. And you'll take the total churn for the year divided by the average customer months. And what that says is you're trying to figure out what were your average number of what was the average customers that existed at any one month, and it's going to weight it based on the length of time a customer existed in that year. So if they left in, say, February versus December, the one that left in February is going to have a much higher effect on the churn rate than the one that left in November. Now, if they were a customer for the entire year, meaning they joined before the year started and they left after that year started, they'll get a full weighting of 365 days or 66 here. Could be a leap year potentially, but this is just essentially 12 months is the biggest weight you have, and then everything will go down from there if you weren't there for full 12 months. And then that gives you the average customer count. If you add all these up and divide it by 12, that gives you this number right here, total customer months. And so here in this case, we're saying in year 2024, you had an average balance of 8.73 customers in that year. And if we look at 2024, you see here we added 9, lost 2. If you look at the monthly, what we can see down here on the monthly, our average count was 9. And this is 2024. Here, new customers were 9. Here, we're saying 8.73, which is a little bit more accurate. And in 2024, you can see they stayed for the whole year, the whole year, the whole year. Now watch this. What if I were to change this to maybe they left in March of 2024? Well, now what happens? We have in theory, this should be a bigger churn rate. So now at 38%, before it was 22. And that's because now you've had a customer that was only there for 3 months of the year rather than before it was 12 months of the year. So when we add this up, divide by 12, it is a smaller number than if this were to say 12. And so what that means is your denominator is smaller. And remember, we are dividing by your denominator. In this case, it's 7.9, and at December 20, if it was the full year, you're at 8. So a bigger denominator means smaller churn. In this case, um, essentially saying that you had the same churn customers, but your basis was 8.73, whereas here they left earlier. That's bad. Now you have a smaller denominator. They actually churn, so this is bigger. So both this is smaller and this is bigger, which is going to give you a higher result when you divide 3 by 7.9 versus 2 by 8.7. So you can kind of see the math there, the logic. You can use any three of these to calculate your annual churn rate. Now in this one, you can only do it by year. Now technically you could look at my mapping I did on, I believe you're going to need F, G, H, and I. You're going to have to copy this and paste it for each year and say, okay, this is year 2022, 23, and then re-reference the right years. Otherwise, you can only select the year and it'll give you the annual churn rate for the year. Now again, this is for actuals only, or you can use any of these other methods to see it side by side. And then also what I did here is I mapped your retention for you based on averages. So based on when the customers came and left, I can map your retention on average here to say, okay, based on your data, what was the probability of assuming these are 1 month contracts. In month 1 you had 100%, month 2. Well, in this case, nobody left until after month 11, so this is your retention here. Whereas here you can put in a modeled retention pattern and see what the annual churn rate is. Here we're actually looking at the start and end dates of actual data. So if we have that, we can then calculate the retention average here, pattern, and this could be 12 months as well. It'll just show the correct percentages at the month number. And yeah, I mean, I think this is probably one of the pinnacle pieces of SaaS financial modeling framework I've ever built. Super useful. You can really get an idea of how to calculate annual churn rate, which is important. You also get a general sense of how to model SaaS businesses, customer counts. Now, again, we're not even talking about churn of money or anything else. This is all about how sticky are your customers, which if you're trying to raise money, venture capitalists, they want to know how sticky are your customers, and you're going to need reasons to justify, if you don't have any data, this retention pattern or whatever you end up having for your retention pattern. They're going to want to know what that's based on, or if you have actuals, then this is just going to be what it is, and that's also going to be very important and insightful. And to be able to calculate all this based on just entering a customer start date, end date, super valuable. So you can download the template, $45 one-time fee in the link below. Check out more. Go to smarthelping.com. This will be in the SaaS bundle here. I'll also have it individually. It'll be part of the SaaS calculators section, which I've done some other things here as well. And remember to check out, I do spreadsheet work for all types of industries. I've done work over the past decade. So you can get bottom-up financial models, 5 and 10 year for all kinds of different industries, all bottom-up assumptions with 3-statement modeling, income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement, SaaS models for a bunch of different views of different types of SaaS businesses, B2B, B2C, freemium, all sorts of combinations of things. I've done a lot of real estate models as well. Multifamily underwriting, apartment buildings, strip malls, mobile home park, joint ventures, general business valuation, accounting tools. Recently did the activity-based costing model. That was a cool one. 13-week cash flow planner. That's probably good for anybody that has a business in general. Check it out, guys. And you can always go to the Super Smart Bundle. If you go to the home page right here, and you get everything I've ever built for $4.99, and that includes everything I ever build in the future as well. Alrighty, like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. This is SaaS annual churn rate.